Hidden jealousy is not an emotion. It is a strategy, and it requires one. Most people experience jealousy as a feeling, but the kind that causes real damage, the hidden variety, the kind that wears friendliness as a mask and concern as a costume, this is not just a feeling. It is a behavioral pattern, a sustained, organized response to someone else's success that has found the discipline not to announce itself. It is the colleague who praises your work in public and undermines it in private. The friend who celebrates your achievement with words, while withholding the genuine warmth those words should carry. The person who finds subtle ways to redirect your opportunities, diminish your contributions, or create the impression of your limitations in the minds of people who matter. These things do not happen by accident. They happen with the quiet consistency of someone who has organized their behavior around an objective, the management of your position relative to theirs, without ever acknowledging that objective, even to themselves. The intelligent person recognizes this pattern for what it is, not as a paranoid reading of ordinary social friction, not as the projection of insecurity onto neutral behavior, but as the accurate perception of a real dynamic, one that Sun Tzu would have recognized immediately, named precisely, and responded to with the strategic clarity he brought to every form of opposition. This video is about that strategic clarity, about the specific, practical intelligence that handles hidden jealousy, not by confronting it, not by suffering it, but by understanding it so completely that it loses its power to do what it was designed to do. Let's begin by understanding what hidden jealousy is actually doing at the level of mechanism, not emotion. Hidden jealousy operates through the management of your reputation and your opportunities in the minds of the people who control what is available to you. It rarely attacks you directly. Direct attack is visible, and visible attack can be defended against. Instead, it works in the spaces between direct communication in the aside, the omission, the subtly calibrated framing that shapes perception without making a claim that can be refuted. It is the small hesitation before praise that makes the praise seem less than genuine. The story told about you that is technically accurate but selectively assembled to produce an impression that the full story would not support. The introduction that positions you in a way that requires you to spend the next 10 minutes recovering the ground it took. The mechanism is always the same. The jealous person places themselves between you and the perception others have of you, and they use that position to adjust the signal, not enough to be obvious, just enough to be effective. Sun Tzu wrote about the importance of controlling the perception of your own forces. The general who allows the enemy to set the terms by which their army is perceived has already conceded an important advantage. The perception of capability shapes the battle before the battle is fought. Hidden jealousy is, at its core, a campaign to control the perception of your capabilities in the minds of the people whose assessment matters. Understanding this reframes everything. This is not personal, it is strategic, and strategic problems respond to strategic solutions. The first intelligence that Sun Tzu would bring to this situation is the discipline of accurate recognition. Not the paranoid recognition that finds hidden jealousy in every expression of concern or friendly criticism. Not the avoidant recognition that refuses to name the pattern because naming it feels disloyal or dramatic. The accurate recognition, the quiet, evidence-based, pattern-based assessment that distinguishes between genuine support with imperfect execution and organized, consistent behavior that has a direction. The test is consistency. Genuine support is consistent across contexts. It is as present in the private conversation as the public one. It is as present when you are not in the room as when you are. It does not vary systematically based on who else is watching or what advantage the expression of support might provide in that specific social moment. Hidden jealousy is inconsistent in ways that form a pattern. The warmth is higher when you are struggling and lower when you are succeeding. The praise is louder in contexts where it costs nothing and quieter in contexts where genuine advocacy would actually help. The introduction is more generous to the audience that doesn't matter and subtly less generous to the audience that does. These inconsistencies are the signature. They are what Sun Tzu called knowing the enemy's pattern, the repeated tendency that reveals the underlying strategy, even when the individual moves are individually deniable. Name the pattern accurately, to yourself, not to the world, not in confrontation. The accurate naming is the beginning of intelligent response. The second intelligence is the refusal to be destabilized by what you have recognized. This is harder than recognition. Recognition is cognitive, a matter of seeing clearly. Refusing destabilization is emotional, a matter of maintaining your own equilibrium in the face of something that has genuine power to disturb it. Hidden jealousy disturbs because it operates in the place where your self-image meets the social world's perception of you. It plants seeds of doubt, not about specific facts, but about fundamental things. About whether your success is real or luck, whether your competence is genuine or performed, whether the people who seem to respect you actually respect you, or have simply not yet received the subtle correction that the jealous person has been administering. These seeds grow in proportion to how much of your self-assessment you have placed in external hands. The person who genuinely knows their own worth, whose assessment of their own competence does not depend entirely on what others believe, is largely immune to this particular poison. The seeds find no soil. Sun Tzu wrote that the secure army cannot be agitated. The general who knows the true strength of their forces is not shaken by the enemy's propaganda about those forces. The propaganda may reach the soldiers, but the general's assessment is not dependent on the enemy's narrative. Develop the internal certainty that does not require the jealous person's endorsement, not as a performance of confidence, as the genuine product of honest self-assessment, regularly renewed, anchored in evidence that is yours and not dependent on theirs. The third intelligence is strategic invisibility, and this is the one that Sun Tzu would find most directly useful. Hidden jealousy requires information to operate effectively. It needs to know where you are going in order to redirect you. It needs to know what you care about in order to target it. It needs to know who your important relationships are in order to infiltrate their perception of you. The person who provides this information freely, who announces their ambitions, shares their plans, declares their important relationships and their strategic direction, is providing the jealous person with everything they need to operate efficiently against them. Strategic invisibility is the deliberate reduction of this information, not secrecy for its own sake, not the affected mystery we have discussed and dismissed elsewhere in this series. The practical, purposeful management of what you make visible to people who have demonstrated they will use visibility against you. Your ambitions are visible only to the people who will support them. Your plans develop quietly, before announcement. Your important relationships are not performed in front of people who might damage them. Your strategic direction is revealed through results rather than declarations. This is not defensiveness. It is the ordinary wisdom of someone who understands that not all audiences are created equal, and that the audience of the hidden, jealous person is an audience whose information will be used against you. Sun Tzu was explicit: do not give the enemy what they need to plan against you. Move quietly. Let the results be louder than the intentions. The fourth intelligence is the most counterintuitive and the most powerful: the strategic management of your own success. Hidden jealousy intensifies in proportion to the visibility of your success. The more prominently your success is displayed, the more acutely the jealous person feels its challenge to their own position, and the more organized their response becomes. This is not a reason to diminish your success. It is a reason to be thoughtful about how it is displayed. The person who is visibly successful in a way that implicitly challenges the people around them, who makes their success a point of distinction, a comparison, a measure by which others might feel measured, this person has created the conditions for maximum jealousy response, not because they have done anything wrong, because they have provided the most activating possible stimulus to the will's comparative machinery in others. The person who is successful without performing the success, who produces results without narrating the achievement, who earns recognition without soliciting it, who is simply and quietly excellent at what they do. This person still generates jealousy. Genuine excellence always does. but they generate it in a form that is harder to organize against, because the success is not wearing the specific form that makes it most threatening. Sun Tzu wrote that the victorious army does not show its strength until the moment when showing it is decisive. The display of strength before that moment is simply an invitation to calibrated resistance. Let the results speak. Let others narrate the excellence. The first-person narration of your own success is the unnecessary step that activates what could otherwise have been managed. Let's look at what the intelligent person does in the specific moments where hidden jealousy becomes most active. The moment most people find most destabilizing is when they become aware, through the accumulation of evidence, that someone they had considered a supporter has been operating against them in the spaces between direct interaction. This awareness carries a specific grief, not just the strategic problem, but the loss of a relationship that was not what it appeared to be. Sun Tzu would separate these two things immediately. The grief belongs in the private space where genuine feelings are processed. The strategy belongs in the separate space where clear-eyed assessment operates. Mixing them, making strategic decisions from grief, or suppressing the grief in the name of strategic clarity, produces neither genuine processing nor genuine strategy. Process the grief where it belongs, then bring the clear assessment to the strategic question: what does this person's behavior actually require from me going forward? The answer is almost never confrontation. Confrontation reveals that you have been paying attention, which is information the jealous person will use. It converts a cold, contained dynamic into a hot, escalated one on terrain. The jealous person, who has been operating in this mode for longer than you have been responding to it, is more practiced on. The answer is almost always recalibration. Adjust the information you provide. Adjust the vulnerability you extend. Adjust the opportunities for the pattern to operate by removing the conditions it depends on. Not with hostility, with the quiet, undramatic efficiency of someone who has read the terrain accurately and is now moving accordingly. Let's examine a historical illustration, because Sun Tzu's principles become most vivid in the lives of real people navigating real dynamics. The court of Louis XIV of France was the most elaborately managed social environment in European history. Every aspect of Versailles, its architecture, its rituals, its physical organization of space, was designed to make the king the center of all orientation and to make every other person's status visible and therefore manageable. In this environment, hidden jealousy was not an aberration. It was the primary currency of social navigation. Courtiers spent their entire careers managing the perception of their rivals, in the king's estimation through the aside at the right moment, the story told to the right person, the subtle framing of another's failure that had been arranged to be witnessed. The courtiers who survived longest were not the ones who were most aggressive in this game. They were the ones who were most disciplined in their invisibility, who gave their rivals the least possible information to work with, who maintained the fewest exposed vulnerabilities, whose success was difficult to target because it was never loudly displayed. They understood what Sun Tzu articulated centuries earlier: the target you do not present cannot be aimed at. The vulnerability you do not reveal cannot be exploited. The ambition you do not announce cannot be redirected. The survival of the long-term courtier was the survival of someone who had learned to move without providing the information that movement generates. The lesson is not specific to royal courts. Every competitive social environment, every office, every professional community, every social group with finite status to distribute runs on a version of this dynamic. The principles hold. Now let's address the inner dimension, because intelligent handling of hidden jealousy is not only strategic, it requires something from your interior as well. The person who handles hidden jealousy with ease is not a person who feels nothing about it. They feel the specific sting of being undermined by someone they trusted. They feel the frustration of having their work filtered through a lens designed to diminish it. They feel the particular loneliness of navigating something that cannot be easily named or directly addressed. These feelings are real, and they require genuine attention, not suppression, not performance of equanimity over a turbulent interior. The interior work that Schopenhauer described The philosophical groundedness that Nietzsche pointed toward, these are the preconditions for the ease the title describes. The ease is not the absence of feeling. It is the presence of a self stable enough to hold the feeling without being governed by it. The person who has done this interior work arrives at the strategic dimension of hidden jealousy already resourced. They are not trying to handle the jealousy and the grief and the strategic problems simultaneously with no foundation. They have the foundation. The strategy can be applied from solid ground. Sun Tzu's general, who knows himself, cannot be destabilized by the enemy's campaign. The campaign may be real. The response is clear. The ground beneath does not shift. There is one more dimension that deserves honest attention, the dimension that the purely strategic reading of this topic tends to miss. Hidden jealousy, in almost every case, is the response of someone who is suffering. Not suffering in a way that justifies what they are doing. The harm caused is real, regardless of its source. But suffering in the specific way that Schopenhauer described, the suffering of the will confronting another person's possession of something it wants and cannot reach. The person organizing their behavior around the management of your success is not doing so from a place of genuine power. They are doing so from a place of genuine pain, the chronic, low-grade, rarely examined pain of someone who measures their worth against the world around them and finds the measurement painful when others are succeeding. This does not require your sympathy in any form that costs you something. You are not obligated to provide emotional care to someone who has been working against you, but it does provide a useful perspective. The hidden jealous person is not powerful. They are frightened. Their campaign is not strength. It is the managed expression of inadequacy that cannot bear to be made visible. Understanding this shifts something in how you hold the situation. Not into pity. Pity is not useful here. Into a kind of grounded clarity that makes the intelligence of your response genuinely effortless rather than effortfully strategic. You are not navigating a formidable opponent. You are navigating a frightened person who has chosen an inefficient and ultimately self-defeating way to manage their fear. That recognition is not arrogance. It is accuracy. And accuracy, as always in this series, is the beginning of genuine ease. Here is the practice in the specific, daily form that philosophy becomes real. When you notice the pattern, when the inconsistency of warmth across contexts has become undeniable, when the subtle redirections have accumulated into something too organized to be accidental, resist the first impulse, which is to address it directly. Take the time to assess clearly. What information does this person have access to that they have been using against you? What vulnerabilities have you made visible that you could close without drama or announcement? What ambitions have you declared that could be pursued more quietly? What important relationships have you displayed in ways that make them targetable? Adjust each of these things with the matter-of-fact efficiency of someone rearranging their environment for better function, not as punishment, not as withdrawal that announces itself as withdrawal, simply as the natural recalibration of someone who has assessed the terrain accurately and is now moving accordingly. Continue producing. This is the most important single instruction. The hidden jealous person's campaign depends on the visibility of your position as a target. The best response to an attack on your reputation is a reputation that continuously outgrows the attack. Produce work that is undeniable. Build results that speak louder than any subtle reframing can reach. Let the excellence be its own argument. And do all of this with the equanimity of someone who has genuinely understood what they are dealing with, not a formidable enemy requiring maximum resources. A frightened person running an inefficient strategy against a moving target that will not hold still long enough to be effectively undermined. Sun Tzu's deepest insight about opposition is this: the enemy who is understood is the enemy who is already half defeated. Not because understanding makes them weak, because understanding removes the power that confusion gives them. Hidden jealousy draws much of its power from the fog it creates, the uncertainty about whether what you are perceiving is real, the self-doubt it plants in the absence of certainty, the energy you spend wondering whether you are being paranoid rather than accurate. Name the pattern. Understand the mechanism, recognize the source, remove the available information, continue producing. Hold your ground without drama or announcement. The fog lifts. The campaign loses its primary fuel, your confusion and your destabilization, and what remains is simply a frightened person in a room, running a strategy that no longer has a target. The ease the title describes is not the ease of someone who feels nothing. It is the ease of someone who understands everything and has therefore removed themselves from the position where the hidden jealousy could actually land. You are not the target anymore. Not because you have defeated anyone, because you have simply moved. With clarity, with quiet, and with the strategic grace of someone who read the terrain before the campaign began.